It
Hey!
worked.
Hi, everyone.
Did it work?
Yeah, we're live.
Okay.
I think we're live.
Okay.
It was the first time we went live using the intro, and so we weren't sure what happens when the intro music
We were
stops.
listening to our own music for the last 5 minutes.
I feel like that's what we always do.
Yeah, it's a good song though.
So today we are doing some pumpkin painting and also doing a live Q&A. So if you all have any questions, it would probably help if I had the comments section open so I could see them. There we go. So if you have any questions, just feel free to ask them. And as we see them coming in, we'll try to answer as many as we can to the best of our abilities. There's a lot of people who had a lot of questions about ChristmasWish, and that program right now, applications are running. I think they close in about a week. So November 1st, I think that's about a week and a half.
We pretty much cut it off at the end of October. So
yeah.
If you haven't submitted, submit.
Yeah. So if you have any ChristmasWish questions, feel free to ask those. I think we will just go over that just to have it out in there. Yeah. And we are also doing some pumpkin painting while we do this, because this is like our tradition. Every Halloween, we like to do pumpkin painting and live Q&A. Also, we're not using our normal mics today, so we're trying to project, but if you can't hear us, let us know and we'll try to be louder. But we don't really know what volume we sound like right now.
Yeah. So
yeah.
If you see something suspicious, say something suspicious.
That was my motto on the Metro. Probably not a good one. So first thing I want to talk about is just a little backstory here. So if you can tell, you can only see about this corner of my pumpkin and probably about a corner of his pumpkin. So we were very unprepared because we were bringing our girls out to like pumpkin patches and fall festivals. And so we went to get a pumpkin and we totally forgot, like, oh no, we're doing pumpkin painting and we forgot to get our own pumpkins. So we got the girls' pumpkins and we forgot to get our own pumpkins. Thanks, Rachel. It's good to know that we sound good. Needless to say, we were basically desperate because we're like, we have this live pumpkin painting thing and we don't have pumpkins. So we just got to grab whatever we see. And we went to the store and this was literally all they had left. Are you even able to carry it, or is it like so
it's
heavy?
Like the size of like,
look at this thing. What this thing is like, if you could tell depth perception through a camera, that thing is like a third of my body height.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
It's huge. So I don't know how I'm going to paint this monstrosity. So I'm going to try, but needless to say, it's probably the largest pumpkin I've ever attempted to paint. So hey,
for $6.
There we go. There's an event here going on.
There we go.
Yeah, it was $6 though. It was incredibly cheap. We're getting totally derailed, but yeah, $6 for like a 500-pound pumpkin. I mean, slight exaggeration. So, today we are going to basically we're going to be painting our pumpkins. If you guys have one at home that you are doing at the same time, because I mentioned it earlier, feel free. Otherwise, we're going to be here to answer any questions that you have. So again, if you have any questions, just throw them into the chat. We will see them and we'll answer them as we go. Otherwise, we will just be chatting about whatever comes to mind as we paint our pumpkins. So be forewarned, that means there is a stream of consciousness going, which means we can't be held liable for the things that come out of our mouth when we're not noticing.
That's true.
We're both neurodivergent, okay? Don't judge us.
Randomly talk about randomness. So.
Yeah. So it might go off the rails really easily. We're both ADD. So without further ado, the first thing that I actually do want to talk about is, let me actually start off with ChristmasWish. First let's just say what we're painting so that we can do that while we talk. So what are you going to be painting?
I am going to be painting an owl.
An owl. And I'm going to be painting a white cat because we're suckers and we always paint whatever our kids want. Last year we did ducks. Because that was our oldest kid's favorite animal. I'm doing a white cat because that's my youngest kid's favorite animal. And the owl's like close second.
They both like owls.
Yeah. So we don't even paint our own pumpkins. We do everything for our kids.
That's true.
But I did want to bring up ChristmasWish. So ChristmasWish, like I said, it's around the corner. And so applications close on November 1st. We've had insane amount of applicants this year.
Most ever we've had.
Yeah, record-breaking applications by far. I think it probably has something to do with the state of the economy is my guess. But the one thing that we're seeing is there are a lot of them that will basically end up getting rejected if there aren't changes. We send out an email every time we get applications in. We follow up with an email that will tell you whether your child's application has been accepted, and if it has been accepted, where you are essentially on kind of like that wait list. And then if you don't have a completed application, like it's missing important information, we will also send you an email that'll show you essentially what it is that you need to complete. One of the things that we're seeing that happens a lot is people are not sending us Amazon wish list links. They're sending us collaboration invitations. That does not work, because what that does is it gives us an invitation to edit your wish list. So we don't want to give these to the sponsors. So what we do is when we get these wish lists, we will match them with a sponsor and they will get a link to your wish list. So if it gives that person the ability to add or remove things from your wish list, that's not good. So we need the shareable version of that. There's lots of videos, links on the internet that you can find on how to do that, but we also send that information in the email that we send back. The other common one that we're seeing is people forgetting to put justification comments for each item. So the justification comments are these specific comments that you can put on each item that you're requesting that essentially says, hey, my kid needs this for sensory reasons, or needs this because they might be like a fidgeter or something like that. Like, this will help them with X, Y, and Z. That's what you put in those comment section. And those are actually important because a lot of the times the sponsors, they'll look down your list and they will look at the justification comments, and they want to find what they feel will be like most helpful for your child. So a lot of times what's in those comments will determine what they end up getting for your kid. The other one that we see is
usually people, it's kind of a 50-50 if they remember to put their address. So the other thing is, everything might be great. You might have your 3 items under $20 that's been requested, but the other big one might be you forget your address. Now, obviously your address has to be included because we have no way to send you your gifts if you are selected. So that's kind of a no exception whatsoever on that one. You have to have your address, otherwise it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, so make sure you have your shipping address on there. That's the third thing that we usually see. And then what was that fourth one? Oh, you have to have at least 3 items on your wish list that are priced at 20 or below.
Right.
So this is another thing that we want to kind of shout out there. So the average sponsor will sponsor a gift for a child that ranges between like maybe 20 to 50, sometimes 20 to $75. So gifts that are in that price range are more likely to get picked up by a sponsor. A lot of our sponsors are just everyday people. So we go out and we basically go like door knocking and things like that. And these are just like regular folks on regular incomes that'll go and decide to grant wishes for your children. So usually it's in that price range. So gifts outside of that price range are more than likely not going to be selected. Right. You're welcome to put them on your list, but I'm just giving you a heads up of what we've seen typically happens.
Right, because we've seen some people who on their list, they'll put like a iPad as a high priority item. And we understand, like, yes, I mean, with autism, iPads are like hot commodities. But I mean, you basically have to consider, okay, is your next door neighbor going to be one who's able to pick that up? Because I mean, that's basically what we're doing, kind of going door to door. So I mean, there is a random chance that maybe we will talk to someone who is financially doing very well. But realistically, I mean, Lee and I are both
let's just say it's never happened yet.
Right. so I mean, expectations, I mean, we are not a I mean, we're a 2-person operation here.
Yeah. So basically, I think what's kind of happened that's kind of great, but kind of also difficult or challenging is that Autism Wish has been picked up by really big places like Make-A-Wish Foundation and other organizations like that have somehow heard of us. And so we are starting to get a lot of referrals from people who originally went to those organizations and were essentially rejected. And so the impression, I think, is that they believe that we are like a Make-A-Wish Foundation, which unfortunately we're not. We're still very mom and pop. And so our resources are really limited. So we are not anywhere near the capacity or capability of Make-A-Wish, but we do try our best to find sponsors for kiddos. And so far, we've had really good luck with finding sponsors for kiddos who will grant those smaller items off of your Amazon wish lists. So that's basically that. Those were like the 4 main things, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
pretty much.
So those are like the 4 reasons, the 4 primary reasons that an application will be rejected. And those are the ones that get kicked back. I see a question here from Mickey Adams. Just by looking at your name, it doesn't ring a bell. Does it ring a bell to you?
I don't believe so, but we've had,
it doesn't ring a bell. I'd have to go back and check our list. But just by looking at your name, it doesn't ring a bell like we've received an application from you. I can't say definitively. We'd have to go back and look. Send us an email at info@autismwish.org. You can pretty much just copy paste what you have here and just email it to us, and we'll check on your application. The name doesn't ring a bell, so I feel like maybe we didn't receive it, but we'll double check for you. But the way it works is when you submit your application, it's a Google form, right? So the Google form will give you a confirmation at the end. When you submit it, it'll say, thanks for submitting. Expect that you'll get a response between like 1 to 2 weeks for processing. So that is the confirmation. If you received that when you submitted the Google form, that means we received your application. You will not get a follow-up immediately. So again, we need that like 1 to 2 week processing time because we're an extremely small team, and we're processing literally hundreds of applications and also have full-time jobs and also have autistic children and therapies and all that. So there's a lot that happens behind the scenes. But what you can do is basically keep an eye on your email. Make sure that you're checking your spam, because I've seen that our emails sometimes go to either spam, or if you use Gmail, they will sometimes go to that like promotions tab and you won't see it. So you can do a quick search in your email and just type in Autism Wish and see if anything comes up that maybe got lost. But otherwise, basically mandatorily, everyone will get an email, whether you're missing something or you got accepted. If you're on that list and you submitted an application, you will get an email at some point.
And usually the response is the first response is relatively quick with the email, I would think, right? Within
that, we usually,
window.
Within that window. We try to get to them faster and typically can get to them faster. But like, for example, last week, our whole family was sick. So everything kind of got delayed.
Right. I mean, if it depends on when you had submitted. I mean, if you submitted it within like the last like day or couple days, you probably won't have a response yet. I mean, if it was submitted like a couple weeks back, a week back,
definitely should have got a response if it's been a couple weeks. So again, the best thing I would recommend is send us an email at info@autismwish.org. And when we're basically looking through everything, we will take a look and verify that, and we'll respond to your email and make sure. But again, let's see, will you let me know before the application deadline comes? So yeah, let us know, send us an email. We'll follow up with you. I'll check my email now. I submitted the day the application's opened. Okay, if you submitted then, you definitely would have heard by now. Yes, 100% you should have heard back by now. If you check your email and you don't see you got anything from us, email me anyway, because I got to make sure that you actually applied, that your application went through. Sometimes people will email us thinking that that's the application, but it's not. There's a form. But if you submitted the form, you definitely should have heard back.
Especially that far back. I mean, because we're already at the third week that it's open, I believe. We're at 20 something.
Yeah. So check your email and just make sure. Otherwise, email us. All right. Sorry. I'm like distracted painting too. So one other thing that we wanted to talk about with ChristmasWish is basically what's going to happen now, right? So basically what's happening is the applications are open through the month of October. Next year, we'll probably make it shorter because it's quite a long window. And then November 1st, applications will close. So then starting November 1st, what we do is that's when we basically start door knocking, and that's when we start networking, and that's when we start trying to find as many sponsors as we can to gift as many kids as we can. Like I mentioned before, this year we've had an unprecedented number of applicants, probably more than double from what we've had in the past few years. Right. Yeah, it's not only record-breaking, but significantly record-breaking. And so because of that, my suspicions are that this year we might not be able to get everyone gifted, but I don't know yet until we're able to make those connections and see where we're at. But again, we do make every effort to try to get as many kiddos gifted as possible because we're super passionate about this.
Right.
So that's what'll happen. And then what we'll do is in the month of November, we'll make all these connections and go door knocking, as I said. And once we find sponsors, what we do is we kind of go down that list of kids who have been accepted into the program. And we basically will just try to kind of knock them off one by one and get as many gifted as possible. If there's enough sponsors that match the amount of kids, then we just go down the list. If the amount of kids exceeds the amount of sponsors, then we do a random selection. So we'll see which one ends up happening. But either way, you'll be informed throughout the process. If your kid is selected, we will send you an email that'll tell you your kid has been selected, and you'll get a date that'll tell you approximately when to expect that gift by. And if your child is not gifted, which hasn't happened yet, but this year might be the year it happens, we will follow up with you to let you know that as well.
Right. And we try and send out gifts early. I mean, especially with kind of the whole, I mean, still recovering from COVID and like transition issues and such. So, I mean, each year it's always kind of a challenge because, I mean, we're not sure how early we can send them out or how far we can push it back. So we usually try and send it out within the first couple of weeks of December, just to make sure that it's actually there on time for Christmas.
We try to get stuff shipped out no later than like the second week of December, just to make sure there's at least 1 to 2 weeks built in for shipping to make sure. That's if we have to end up gifting them directly. So there's 2 ways that kids get gifted. Essentially, we match you directly with a sponsor. And if that's the case, that sponsor or that hero will be given the information that you provide in your application. So that'll be like the nickname of their kid that you gave, their age, and their little biography that you guys wrote up for them. And then the wish list link. We'll give them all that information. And then it's up to them to go on your wish list and select what they want to give your child, and then basically get that sent out. And then they are responsible for giving us the day that it's supposed to be expected to arrive. And then that way we're able to communicate with you and say, hey, somebody picked up your kid. They're going to give them a gift and it should arrive by X date. We don't have any information on like what those gifts are or anything. We just know basically the shipping information and we forward that along. Now, the other way that kids get gifted is, hi, Eileen. The other way that kids get gifted is we will sometimes have bigger sponsors, like maybe a therapy clinic or something like that, who wants to help donate towards sponsoring kids, but they don't necessarily have the time to go through every wish list. So sometimes what they'll do is they'll donate a lump sum to sponsor, say 5 to 10 kids or something like that. When that happens, we basically take those funds and we will directly go in and we'll select things from the wish list and send them out within the budget of what that sponsor gives us. So depending on what they give us, we kind of divvy it up equally amongst the kids that they wanted to sponsor. And then you'll get the gift basically saying it's from Autism Wish. So that will be basically the other way that you're potentially able to get that gift. Anything else that rings a bell about that process?
I'm just thinking of previous years. So, I mean, I think that's pretty much, I mean, it's worked well in the past. So, I mean, we're hoping for a good track record this year. Of course, I mean, there's always kind of unexpected hiccup along the road, but I think we should, I mean, hopefully be okay for the most part.
Yeah.
So.
I think just the important thing to reiterate is that, again, we're small, we're family run, and we are neurodivergent, which means we've got executive dysfunction, ADHD, all sorts of stuff that keeps us off task sometimes. So we try to get things as efficiently as possible, but sometimes, even being parent to a couple autistic kiddos, it gets really busy. So we don't have frequent availability, but we try to respond to emails as quickly as we can. Usually you'll see those emails are at weird times. We don't have regular business hours or anything. Usually we take evenings or breaks or weekends, naps, things like that. That's when we're like responding to emails and such. So that's why those are like weird times. And that's why you might not see a response immediately. Let's see, Eileen. Oh, okay. So Eileen has a Halloween question. I guess this is a good time to transition.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to have you read because my eyes.
Oh, yeah. I can read. I have better than 2020. Okay. So Eileen says, should I not allow Minnie to trick or treat if she was bad during school or biting classmates? So I think that's going to vary depending on who you ask.
What is your take on it?
Personally, so okay, it also depends because is it that they're doing it the day of the Halloween event? Or like, for example, right now is October 22nd. So I would definitely not withhold trick-or-treating if it's like a week out from the punishment, especially when you've got younger kids. Whenever you do something that's like really delayed, they lose that connection of what the like consequence even was for. So usually if there's going to be some sort of consequence, it should probably be a lot closer to the event of whatever it was that they misbehaved. Personally, for me, I would not want to take away something that there's only one opportunity to get, but maybe put some other limitation, like maybe like you can go trick or treating, but when you get your candy, you're not going to have access to your candy until X, Y, and Z or whatever. Like maybe put another limitation, but maybe not the trick or treating. I particularly hesitate with autistic kiddos because with autistic kiddos, there's not a lot of opportunity for social engagement. And I feel like Halloween is a really good one because one of the struggles with autistic kids is being able to fit in and masking and all sorts of like social discomfort type of stuff. And Halloween, I think, gives kids a very rare opportunity to be able to kind of fit in and not feel like the odd one out.
That's
you
right.
know?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I'd probably use it as like a threat, but like maybe not like follow through with it. Kind of like a open threat, like, oh, if you don't like behave, we're not going to go trick or treating.
An empty threat. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I know it's probably bad parenting, but yeah, no. I think it's hard, especially since we're so far out, to actually like hold true to that. Because I mean, I find myself sometimes like if one of our kids does something, I'm upset. I can't really hold on to that grudge like throughout the day where I'm like, well, you didn't do this early in the morning, even though it's in the afternoon or late at night. Because I'm like, okay, they clearly forgot what happened 5 hours ago. Even though I remember it, I'm still kind of like annoyed regardless. So
yeah, and also I hesitate. So the reason in this situation looks like it says because she was bad during school or biting classmates, which normally when a kid, like if a neurotypical kid was going around biting other classmates, I would, I'd be like, okay, they're just acting up or something and they're misbehaving. But I kind of changed my thinking a little bit when it comes to an autistic kid biting other kids because sometimes that could be a sensory thing. So it looks like, okay, so she says she bit 3 kids within 2 days, 1 kid both days, didn't go to school because of the principal, and again Thursday. Okay. So one of the things to investigate there is to
like
try
the
to see
cause.
what's the trigger. Yeah, like
Yeah.
perhaps like was that kid
Like bullying her? Or, I mean, if there's
is there something going on there, or was the kid wearing a color she doesn't like? Like maybe it's a sensory thing. Maybe the kid had a toy she didn't like, or maybe they were wearing shoes that make a sound that really bothers her. Like it could be something that we don't know. So I think investigating to see maybe what those days had in common and like what happened before the behavior, and see if there's anything in common each time. I think if she's consistently biting the same person, I know it said 3 kids and 1 was 2 days. I'd be curious to see what the circumstances were around that.
Yeah.
I mean, kids are still kids, even if they're autistic or not. So it might not be sensory. It could just be, a kid misbehaving. That's also possible. But I would probably try to rule out that it wasn't something sensory or transitional. Our kid, no matter what, like our oldest kid, no matter what you do essentially to try to ease those transitions, she has a really hard time with transitions. And sometimes that can come out in like an aggression.
And we've had, I don't know if it was this week or last week, she like hit one of her classmates essentially because she was frustrated. So she was kind of lashing out in frustration. So, I mean, and for that, I mean, there's not really much we can really do. I mean, just be aware. I mean, we work through, okay, when you are frustrated, we kind of work through, okay, different breathing exercises and such like that. So, I mean, I guess I would try and see if it's out of like frustration or what the cause is. Because then
she said that as far as she was told, it was just random people at random times. Mm-hmm. Honestly, if somebody told me that at a school,
Yeah.
Especially because I know your child is going to like an ABA type of facility, unless this is school and not the ABA. But either way, when they say it's just random people at random times, that's not true.
Yeah, I was gonna say
that's not true. And I'm not saying that they're lying. They're probably not lying, but they probably just aren't aware of what that is. Yeah, they probably just don't know what the trigger was, or they weren't paying attention, or perhaps they were paying attention and didn't see the pattern. But like 9 times out of 10, it's not random. There's some.
I was to say
it's a public school. Yeah.
Okay. So I feel like they might not be doing a great job of investigating. They might just say, "Oh, it's that kid. He got bit."
A paper towel. Sorry. Yeah, I have noticed though, at least in our experience with the public school system, and I mean, not to say anything bad about the public school system, because they're trying their hardest given the budget they have and the staff they have, especially now. In this world, it's really hard to get staff. And so I've noticed that a lot of schools are struggling to keep up with the special needs kids, because there's a lot of special needs kids and not a lot of teachers, not a lot of the paras.
Right.
There's not a lot of staff to help with these kiddos. So a lot of times they don't see what happens, because imagine having a class where you got a lot of special needs kids and it says in the IEP you have to help them when they're at the playground, but there's only 3 of you and there's like 10 kids that need that. So sometimes they might be keeping track of somebody else, and then they just hear when somebody's crying, turn around, and they're like, oh no, what happened? Which is very human. But that's why I feel like if they say it's random, it's probably just because they probably weren't paying attention at the time.
Or they don't want to, accept fault that, I missed whatever happened and I heard about it.
Which again, may not be like their fault. It might not be that they did it intentionally or anything like that. They could have, again, been paying attention to helping another child or something like that. But more than likely, I feel like it's not random. So maybe, I guess, long-winded answer to say, keep an eye on it, investigate, see if you can specifically talk to the teachers and say, hey, we know that this has been happening. Can you proactively keep an eye on her and see if you can find a pattern as to why this is happening? If you feel like it might be sensory or even like autism behavioral related, call for an emergency IEP meeting. You are entitled to call those whenever you want, essentially. So call for emergency IEP meeting and see if you can put something in the IEP that will address this, because they should be kicking your kid out of school all the time if it is like an autism behavioral thing. That actually would not be legal to do. And so definitely talk to them and see if you can get that meeting on the books. That'd be my suggestion.
I agree. And then Rachel says, basically, good job. So good job.
Oh, hi, Rachel. Yes. Oh, thank you. We are trying to do good in this world.
The funny thing is, like, the reason why everything was started was more out of like frustration at like the complex.
You want to talk about the Autism Wish origin story?
Oh, it's a funny one.
It's not as cool as the superhero origin story, but
no, it was. I mean, it was actually built out of frustration for, I guess,
the pandemic, right?
What
pandemic?
Well, then I remember the original.
Before that?
No, remember Bliss.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the whole.
Man, it's been so long.
So we're originally from Maryland. We moved. And there was a application process for funding for, was it special needs entirely or just autistic?
People with disabilities. It's like a grant that they would give in the state.
Right. So it's a long form they have to fill out. And apparently it's, if you make a single mistake on the form, they don't tell you, you're just denied. And you just, that's it.
Yeah. You're not even allowed to call them to find out what's wrong. You're not allowed to call them to ask for help. So that basically frustrated us a lot. And there was all these rules that made no sense. Like if you wanted an item.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like let's say you needed to get like a sensory vest or something, like a compression vest. That compression vest could be like $100 on an autism store, or it could be like $40 on Amazon.
Right.
And you're given a budget that they give you, and they would only allow you to purchase it from the autism store.
Yeah.
Because reasons. I don't even know why.
So it could have like the exact same coding, description, everything, same vest, but it's being sold $30 cheaper or whatever on Amazon. And they would immediately deny it, wouldn't even bother, unless it came with, oh, this is a autism store specifically designed for this. So it was a huge, colossal like waste of money in our thought. But basically it limited you to what you could basically purchase, because everything was marked up because it's for special needs. So Lee and I were both frustrated with that. We're like, gosh, if there was just like a program where someone just applies, they have proof of diagnosis that, okay, my child is autistic or whatever, here's the form. Very simple, doesn't have to be complicated where you have to basically jump through hoops to prove diagnosis, which, I mean, we honestly, that's the one thing that hasn't ever been rejected, I think, from Autism Wish. We are super lenient as far as
that's what we wanted to do. So funny. Like basically government assistance programs were so frustrating, so ridiculous with all the red tape and everything. The people were inaccessible. The rules made no sense. So we were like, you know what? This is so frustrating that we just want to make something and make it easier.
Right.
So our goal was to try to make the application as accessible and as easy and as simple as possible. And just be like, look, let's just do Amazon because everything's on Amazon.
Right.
And the other thing is your privacy is protected because on Amazon wish lists, your privacy, like your address is not publicly shown to everyone. So nobody gets your address if they get your wish list.
Right.
So,
and I mean, basically, and I mean, going back to the diagnosis in itself, I mean, you don't even really have to prove your original like diagnosis form that was sent to you. I mean, if you have your doctor, pediatrician, or whatever, I mean,
or an IEP,
right? Or I mean, basically, like when I'm looking through forms like that they send from like a doctor, if I just see what is it, F84.
F84.
If I see F84,
we memorized the autism diagnosis
if I see
code.
Name F84, I'm like, check. Okay, you got your proof of diagnosis. Like, I mean, so I mean, it's pretty simple as far as like what we're looking for to try and approve people. I mean, honestly, we're trying to approve as many people as we can. I mean, we're not looking to like deny people for any reason. I mean, obviously,
there's like no gotchas. Like we're trying to help,
right? And that's what I was gonna say. Like we want to approve as many people as possible because it's more work. If something's wrong, to kind of go back and okay, let's try and get it along. I mean, if we can just greenlight everything and move it forward, I mean, we'd much rather do that. The problem is the areas that we have to flag; those are kind of like non-negotiable. So as far as like, if you don't have an address, we can't really work beyond that because if someone's ordering you a gift and they have no place to send it, I mean, we don't want it showing up on our doorstep. I mean, that does us no good.
So Eileen responded. She says that they were waiting to switch her half days and then add an hour for a holiday vacation break. Trying to get her an ABA plus play therapy. I think play therapy would be great. I used to actually work at a play therapy clinic, and I'm a big fan of play therapy. It's really like intuitive for your kid, and your kid has no idea they're going through therapy. It's just play. It's fun.
Even how we refer to therapy for our kids, I mean, we kind of make it, I mean, exciting for them. I mean, they like going to like their little like preschool, and then we basically just call, oh, you have therapy school today. And they're excited because I mean, yes, they're in like speech, occupational, physical therapy. But for them, it's like, oh, cool, I'm going to school or therapy school versus
they call it therapy school.
Right. And I mean, they, for the most part, have fun with every activity that they do. So, I mean, we kind of make it like fun, like, oh, you get to go to therapy school today. So
also, I hate to break it to you, but the pressure's on. Eileen said she can't wait to see the pumpkins.
Oh, gosh. It's just bad.
They're not going to be great.
No, and we're not painting the same thing either. So it's not like a competition.
Last time there was that competition where we painted the same thing. This time we're doing two different things.
My duck with a machine gun and red hair.
I am not good at painting cats, so these will be interesting.
Leah, look in the video. There's a cat right behind us.
Is there?
Yes.
No, but that's a black cat. I'm doing a white cat. I guess that does make a difference.
Yeah, just, I mean,
all right.
Same general thing.
Good suggestion.
That's why I was like, shoot. That's why I thought that's why you picked the cat. Because I'm like, you just
no, I didn't even notice. That's helpful. Okay, I will not pay attention to that.
You just look at the camera behind us. I was like, I have to like do something.
Why didn't I think of that? See. Anyway, so the other topic that I wanted to bring up, and I wanted to bring this up because the last year that we did the Halloween stream, we talked about the teal pumpkin.
Oh yeah,
remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, so
we were wrong. Disclaimer.
So every year, but it proves our point. Right. So
not misinformation, just we're idiots.
Right. Yeah. So every year, people always on Facebook, social media, all the autism places, you will see the debate of the pumpkin color basically for when it comes to trick-or-treating. And then people are saying like, should we kind of disclose our diagnosis to the public by having our kid hold around a pumpkin that's a different color that will indicate that they are autistic or whatever it may be. And so we basically were like saying that it's not really useful because most people don't know what the teal pumpkin represents. Nobody knows what all this stuff really even means. Most people just think it's a colorful pumpkin. And to prove our point, to prove our point, last year we said teal pumpkin. And so teal pumpkin apparently is for allergies, whereas the blue pumpkin is for autism. So like, we're like huge autism advocates. I'm autistic. I've got autistic kids. And even we got it wrong.
So best of luck to the random neighbor who doesn't even know what autism is, that he or she would know what this different colored pumpkin is, because we sure as heck didn't.
Yeah, so I feel like that, if anything, just like reiterates that we probably shouldn't bother with the teal. See, I did it again. The blue pumpkin.
And next year, if we're wrong again, we can do another disclaimer.
Either way, though, I mean, our argument actually was validated that it is confusing and most people don't know what it means. So that's why I feel like it's not super useful. I did, though, want to add, in case you guys haven't seen it yet, on the Autism Wish social media pages, we posted a printable. It's like postcard size, but it's basically a visual aid to help your child trick-or-treating if they're nonverbal or minimally verbal or just shy.
I kind of think of like almost like the PEC system a little bit, like with the
it's like a visual aid with pictures. Yeah. So it's got like the is it 4 or 5 steps for trick-or-treating?
Like
so
6, yeah.
Yeah. So it's got like an image, and then below it says like the task. So like what they have to do, like knock on the door, say trick or treat, get your candy, put it in your bag,
and then say like thank you or something.
Yeah. And so if your kid is nonverbal, minimally verbal, shy, and you feel like they'd be comfortable with this sort of thing, you can always print that out. I would recommend like cardstock so that it's not too flimsy. And then you can just bring that with you, either stick it in their little trick-or-treat bag or just have it on you in your purse, whatever it may be. And then when they go trick-or-treating, you can pull it out and they can just point to what it is that they need. Or that's if they're nonverbal. If they're verbal, but they need some prompting, you can point to it for them and kind of prompt the words from them. So that's available for you guys. Again, you'll find that on our social media at Autism Wish. And you'll also find it if you go to our website, autismwish.org, resources, and it's on that drop-down menu. Yep.
That came out what, today?
Yeah.
So it's brand new. So unless you've been there within like the last like 8 hours.
If you've been there in the last 24 hours, you wouldn't have seen it. Yeah.
Yep.
So we're still fighting this like cold that we were talking about the last like week. Yeah. So we have like drinks on the side of our table because we're worried we're gonna have like a coughing fit.
I'm actually worried. So my paint, like water, is black, and so is my drink. So
this is my cup of paint water.
Yeah. This
is my iced tea.
Yeah. No,
I have them on opposite sides of the pumpkin so I don't accidentally mess them up.
No, so I was
it might happen.
No, I have your labor cup.
When I was in labor.
Yeah. Or our labor cup, because we were both in labor during that time.
So let's see. It says, Eileen, are there other kids with play therapy? Depends on the clinic. Some places actually will do group therapy, so you can look into that too. I actually am trying to find group therapy here. I think
it might be a little bit harder because of
it's harder to find. Yeah. We haven't been able to find one near us, but group therapy, we had it back at our old place, and it's great. Like, it's so helpful to have like a social group where they're doing therapy together. But I think it's a lot harder to find.
And that, I mean, I think that would be also beneficial because then that's also like working with like peers. So
yeah,
I mean, it has another element where it's not just focused on your child. So yeah,
there it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, yeah, if we were able to find something that was more play therapy focused, I mean, our girls would definitely be in there, but we're still looking for that too. So
yeah, but it is more of a one-on-one usually. It's not usually a group. It can be, again, just depending on the location. But usually it's a one-on-one, and usually what they do is they'll try to do kind of like, you know how adults do like talk therapy to try to get to the root of their emotions or whatever it might be. It's a similar concept, but it's not talk therapy. They're trying to get your child to kind of express what they're feeling through play. So either using like puppets or sand tray art, or they might do like a craft together or something like that. And then they'll use those opportunities throughout play to try to see like, okay, how will they make their character respond in this play? Like, let's say your kid was going to school and getting bullied. They might do like a little puppet show of a kid getting bullied, and then see how their puppet reacts to that situation to like get some insight into how they might be feeling at school, for example. So sometimes they do things like that. I think it's honestly pretty cool. Yeah. Let's see.
Yours is looking a lot better than mine, by the way.
It's not too bad. No, mine doesn't look good. It really doesn't. Okay, so let's see. Yes, old place had a few more better opportunities than down here. Yeah.
But
so Eileen,
change that.
Eileen is in the same area that we're in. So we're further in the south now, and there's not nearly as many resources down here for autism and special needs as there are in the north. So that's one thing that we've been working on, trying to like recreate down here, especially for like recreational activities and things like that.
Right. Trying to find like groups of, I mean, that's what we're trying to do in our local community, where we're trying to have like little meetup sessions where our kids can kind of like come together and like meet either at like a library or a playground, or just have like some type of social gathering.
Yeah.
So
it is hard though.
Yeah, I agree. So that's what our attempts are.
So in terms of what we're going to be doing for Halloween, we are going to be trying to do a fall festival again and see how that goes. It is often hit or miss.
Our track record has not been
the best.
Promising.
Yeah. But see, that's another thing that I want to say is like, we are firm believers of giving our children opportunities to excel and practice. So like, even though our child will have a meltdown when we bring her somewhere, for example, if our kid has a meltdown because we brought them to the park or a festival or whatever it may be, first we try to assess and see, like, was it our fault they had the meltdown? Was it because we didn't prepare enough? Like we didn't bring their earmuffs, or we didn't have a safe space for them, or we didn't prepare them enough with like a social story,
or even something as far as like timing, like, oh, did they not, I mean, are we doing it around like nap time, so they're naturally tired? Did they skip a meal, lunch? Are they hungry? Or is there a reason? I mean, in one case, we found out that our oldest daughter was super upset, having a meltdown. And we found out because she was out in the sun. I mean, it wasn't a particularly hot day, but when we got back to the car, we had like our cooler of drinks. She was super thirsty. And then as soon as she had like her iced tea or lemonade or whatever, she was calm and she was much more like herself.
She was fine. Yeah.
So we think that was like, oh, okay, she's probably a little bit dehydrated and didn't know how to tell us. So she resorted to kind of freaking out and having a little bit of a meltdown. So, I mean, there are elements that we can change. So we can kind of try and keep things as consistent as possible. But then there's also kind of the unknown, where it's kind of, you might just have had a bad day. They might have not been in the best mood. So, I mean, it is hard. So, I mean, like if we go to a fall festival and we had a bad experience, and we know, oh, next week we have another fall festival. So even though we still in our mind, we're like, okay, last week was extremely difficult. We had a meltdown and we had to leave after 5-10 minutes. It's hard to get over that hurdle a little bit for us, but we keep pushing to try and do it because we know it's better to try and have a positive experience, so then we can kind of build, I guess, in their minds like, oh, they can go to a fall festival. Oh, okay. It's okay. It's not only that we try something, it fails, and then we never try it again. So we keep trying to push and kind of do activities as much as possible just to see if we can kind of, I don't know, have a good time with our family.
Yeah. So we're kind of like firm believers of not kind of shutting ourselves out or shutting our kids out of the world because things seem difficult or challenging. So it's kind of like the growth mindset. We talked about this a little bit on our podcast, but like the growth mindset is kind of like always try to grow as a person, always try to push, not, excessively to the point where people are in distress or anything like that. But you want to keep providing yourself and your child with opportunities to grow. And it's hard to do that if we get scared and shut down of certain situations. And sometimes getting scared might be like the public stress of it. Like our kid is having a huge meltdown and she's screaming at the top of her lungs in a public location. And everyone's looking at us and everyone's getting upset, or maybe they're like pulling their kids away. Right. We've kind of learned to let that stuff go. And we're just like, so what? Like if they're looking at us, we're more than happy to have them come up to us and ask questions, and then we can kind of explain the situation to them. Right. But we know that we're not doing anything wrong, and we know our child is not doing anything wrong. We know that they're having some sort of sensory issue, transition issue. It's not their fault, and it's not our fault. So if people want to judge you or shame you over that, that's essentially on them. And so you as a parent shouldn't feel responsible for that guilt because it's not yours.
And I was just saying, we even had, I mean, kind of a mini little start of one this afternoon. And that's where we also work with like improvements. So, I mean, our oldest was upset and yelling at like a mini fall festival where we're going to get their pumpkins.
Yeah.
And so originally I kind of like picked her up and I was like, okay, we know the routine. Okay, let's pick her up. Let's get her to the car and kind of work to get her calmed down. Like, this isn't working well. So, well,
it's not COVID, I promise.
Oh my gosh, I can't talk. So I had her in my arms and I started walking back to the car, and she was crying, saying that she didn't want to go back to the car, but she was also screaming. And I mean, basically kind of pre-meltdown. And I kind of was able to say to her, I was like, okay, if you're able to stop screaming and just breathe, then I'll stop walking. So then she took like a deep breath. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and then I immediately stopped walking and I had her in my arms. And then as soon as she took the deep breath, she wasn't screaming. She was still crying and kind of whining a little bit. But as soon as she stopped screaming, I was able to talk to her. She was able to hear my voice. And then we were able to just kind of stand there and breathe together. Okay, deep breath in. Okay, and then out. And then we did it over and over. And then I was able to explain to her, okay, if we're able to keep breathing and we're not screaming, then we can wait for mom to come over. And then we can see if we're able to do another activity. And it turned out it worked. She was calm. Leah was able to purchase the 2 little pumpkins for the girls. And then she came over and our oldest wasn't crying. And then from there, they were able to go into like a little bouncy house because she was able to change her mindset. So, I mean, that was huge for her because I think that was probably the first time that she was in the middle of a meltdown.
Right.
Or early stages of meltdown. And then she was able to completely stop and do a complete 180 where she was able to go from screaming, yelling, tears, throwing herself where we have to pick her up, to being able to stop yelling and not cry, and then be able to listen to what we're saying and then have a great time. I mean, she was thrilled that she was able to go to the bouncy house after that. So, I mean,
yeah.
So, I mean, I think that, I mean, small steps are, I mean, big achievements. I mean, if we didn't go to this fall festival because we're like, oh, some of the other fall festivals haven't been good, we would have never had this opportunity to have her have any type of growth beyond that because we wouldn't even try to set her up for success or, I mean, any other type of challenges. I mean, it was kind of a big day for her. So, I mean, I was super proud.
And that's the thing. If we get caught up in the negativity of all the times that things go wrong, we might miss out on opportunities where things go right. And some of the happiest moments we've seen our kids have has been during things that we would have probably not done because the previous time they had a meltdown and we're like, oh, we could have said this isn't worth it. We shouldn't try this again. But we did, and they surprise us sometimes. And then they have a really great time. We make good memories, and then you can have some of that sense of normalcy back. So I think that it's important to just kind of push a little bit in terms of
see what they're capable of a little bit.
Don't necessarily think that because they couldn't do something once, twice, 3 times. If they couldn't do it 10 times, that still doesn't mean they can't do it on the 11th time. So that's just kind of like getting off my soapbox here, but that's just kind of how we view things and why we've made a little bit of progress with our girls too.
I can't read.
Sure. Let's see. Let me catch up here. So Wilms Alicia said, you guys are wonderful. Thank you. Eileen says she tried to put her in most group clubs as possible. That could be good or bad. Group clubs is good, but also check in with her, make sure she's not getting socially burnt out. Because autistic people, I personally have this happen to me all the time. When you're socializing a lot, you can also get burnt out because it takes a lot of effort to socialize and it takes a lot of like brain power to maintain that socialization. So sometimes too much can also burn them out. So it's finding like a balance, but it's good to give her opportunities because she'll need those.
Well, also as far as like engaging with other peers, as far as like social,
that's important. That's important. Social pragmatics and things like that.
That's what we're trying to work on.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Another one is, okay, Wilms, everything you're saying is what we deal with every day. Yeah. I'm not sure what your specific situation is. I think welcome to the chat because I don't think I've seen your name here before. I don't think I've seen you in our live stream. So welcome. But yeah, a lot of what we talk about, we hear a lot in the autism community in general. A lot of parents do go through a lot of similar things. So it's always interesting to kind of talk to each other. And that's why I think building networks is important, because you tend to have a lot in common with other parents.
But the other thing is you tend to, I mean, not intentionally, but
it's not COVID. I'm going to say that every time. It's not COVID.
But we tend to like try, I mean, not intentionally, but we sometimes do isolate ourselves where, I mean, we might not do as many activities as we ordinarily would.
Just like this is our one painting activity of the year, even though we love painting.
Right. So, I mean, we do tend to isolate ourselves a bit. And I mean, as far as like date night and such, because we realize, oh, okay, as far as having a babysitter that we would trust or would be able to manage our children without them being like, I don't know, neglected.
It kind of reminds me of like Dennis the Menace a little bit.
I mean, a little bit.
But they're not menaces. It's just they're kind of wild.
Right. But I mean, it kind of isolates you a little bit because you see on Facebook, oh, all my friends are doing this, or other people who have kids are doing whatever with their kids. I don't do that.
Like festivals. Like that was a really hard one. I mean, every year we try it, but we never know how it's going to go.
Right. So, I mean, I understand, but it like kind of can be like a bit like isolating where you're like, oh, wow, it's just me. As where like what we try to do with some of our stuff is kind of be like, no, we're all in the same boat. I mean, it's a struggle. I mean, you really never know day by day. I mean, some days are good. Some days we're not sure if they woke up on the wrong side of the bed or under the bed or
if they're still
hiding
in the bed, which sometimes they do. Yeah. There's another comment. This one's from Allie Ford. It says, hey, Leah and Matt, thank you both so much for all that you do and share. Your podcast and live streams have been such a lifesaver for my husband and I. It helps to know that we're not alone. Keep up the great work. Bless you and your family. Thank you, Allie.
Oh, so sweet.
That's great that your husband is in this with you. One of the things that we talked about in season 2, 3, on our podcast was about, unfortunately, the negative impact that having a special needs child tends to have in marriages and relationships.
And I mean, I am in a handful of dads groups on Facebook. And I mean, it seems like one of the number one challenges is kind of, I guess more so kind of dealing with like divorce or like relationships failing. And it seems like there's a lot of stress
and frustration.
Right. It seems like they're kind of completely caught off guard. Like, oh man, I didn't see this coming. I didn't know that it was this bad. And it just kind of blindsided me. So, I mean, I definitely think that both people should be involved in the conversation. And I mean, doing whatever struggles, or embracing whatever struggles you have together. Cause then, I mean, at least you're on the same page versus like one person.
I almost dipped my paint in my iced tea. Did you see me reach over? I told you it's going to happen in this live stream. I'm going to dip it in my iced tea and I'm going to drink the paint water. Sorry, go ahead.
It's acrylic, not lead-based. You should be fine.
I should be safe. Go ahead. I'm sorry. That was just like a scary moment.
No, but it seems like a lot of the dads are, they acknowledge like, oh, I should have done this differently. And maybe I should have done this or said something, but they find out that they're in hot water when it's kind of too late. So, I mean, there are a great number of dads in the group. I mean, I've seen a number of posts. I was telling you about one earlier today where he was talking about his 8-year-old autistic daughter, and she had like a gymnastic practice or something. And it was, I think the instructor had given an instruction and she had like picked up a beanbag or something. And a couple of the other kids, I'm guessing, were neurotypicals, and they started yelling at her because she wasn't following instructions or doing what she was supposed to. And so the daughter started having a bit of a meltdown, kind of started to freak out and react negatively to it. I mean, anyone would. I mean, if a peer is yelling at you and saying you're doing something wrong.
Right.
So then, I mean, the instructor, thankfully, it seems like from what I was able to read, shut it down. She went over and kind of was like rubbing the daughter's shoulders and kind of saying, like, no, it's okay. Like, I mean, everyone makes mistakes and it's not a big deal or whatever. And then, I mean, thankfully, it sounds like the parents of the neurotypicals were kind of saying like, no, you can't be rude to people and yell at them for whatever reason. It seemed like the dad, he said that he was holding back tears as like the mom had come over to apologize of how her kids were behaving. And I was like, no, we all get that. I mean, because he was basically an outsider observing his daughter have a meltdown out of like frustration that she felt like she did something wrong and wasn't able to fix it. So, I mean, we can all understand or, I mean, empathize with, I mean, the challenges and struggles that you can try and do everything in your power to make sure that they're set up to try and face the world. But then,
yeah,
I mean,
but you cannot account for other people, basically.
Right. So, I mean, and that would be hard having to witness that. I mean, we were kind of driving in the car talking about that. We're like, yeah, I mean, that's why I think we need better awareness and people kind of accepting kind of disabilities, because I mean, we're not going to get there otherwise.
Yeah. We have some more comments here. So yeah, he can't read. He has really bad vision.
I can see the name.
It's supposed to be wear your glasses. Wear your glasses.
My bag.
But so Eileen, I'm not gonna read that one because it sounds like I'm complimenting myself, and I don't want to be narcissistic. But she's saying she loves us. And then Wilms Alicia says, this gives me so much more confidence. Rachel Schott, I hope I pronounced that correctly, says, we're working on building a village. My kiddos are all elopement risks, and it is frightening. So we actually have an episode in the last season, season 5, about building a village. Yes, elopement risks. I get that, because both of our girls are elopement risks.
I would also
have not outgrown it.
One of the helpful things is a handicap placard, actually.
Yeah, we talk about that in the podcast, but
one of the episodes in one of the seasons. Sorry, I can't be more specific.
I think season 6. I don't know.
No, we're on season 6.
No, that's 5, 4. Something. I don't know. They all blur together. But there's a couple things you could do for elopement risks. I don't know what you have done, but or the ages of your kids. But one of the things that we did is we got a prescription wagon from a DME, and it has harnesses. So when I take my kids out, I used to do the backpack leashes, but when they were eloping, it didn't stop them, and they would pull in both directions, and they actually ended up giving me a really bad ankle sprain. So I was like, no more. And then I went and got a prescription and basically got a DME prescribed wagon. And so now it's a 4-seater wagon. So I have both of them in that wagon, and it holds up to 300 pounds.
And I know what you're thinking. Where can I find this wagon? And that is the IRL, where I think we talked to
Babies on Broadway.
I think that's Adele, right?
Yeah, Adele. Yeah. We do have a podcast episode IRL, which means the video. If you go to our YouTube and search Autism Wish, there's a video that we interview the person in charge of the DME, and she talks about how to get that wagon through your insurance. We got ours for free through our insurance. Otherwise, it's like a $900 plus wagon.
But she has all the she
rattles
lives and breathes this. I mean, she's basically rattling off the coding numbers for how they have to or how you should have them coded or whatever. Yeah. So I mean, definitely go if you haven't already seen it and watch the IRL with Adele. And I mean,
again, that's on YouTube.
And I think it's like a 30-minute interview, I think. And I mean, she basically walks you through everything, gives you, every step.
But I also clipped it, so you don't have to watch the 30-minute. There is a clipped version on YouTube that's just like the straight up 5 minutes of info.
Yeah.
Another thing that you could do is you can sign up for a handicap placard. That would be through your state's DMV, whatever state you're in. And you can get one for an autistic kid who's in elopement risks, because you basically use the listed reason as they basically can't walk without another person, or they have to be accompanied by another person for ambulation, for walking or getting from point A to point B. So we were able to get a handicap placard, which makes things a lot easier because we're closer to the building. And a lot of times our girls were pulling in both directions and running into traffic, in parking garages and things like that. So if you get the handicap placard, you can park closer to the building, and they're less likely to elope into the road or the garage, essentially.
Yeah, that's been a big help for us. That there's less that we have to travel to get them to wherever they're going. So
yeah, so those are 2 things that you could do if they're an elopement risk. As far as building a village, that's really hard. Honestly, it's very hard. The form she let the form expire. The pediatrician signed off. Okay, so you basically have to redo the form. But I guess that means that you know how to do it. So at least there's that. Okay, yeah, so I would recommend that for sure. Between those 2 things, we've had a lot less of an issue.
Yeah.
But even so, if you get the wagon, make sure your kid is strapped in, because ours has tried to climb out and still run into the road.
That's true.
So
the straps are absolutely terrible.
But necessary.
Well, it's a 5-point harness, but you have to hold them in such a way that you have to hold all 5 pieces together. So you can imagine if
it's not designed well.
Oh my gosh, you can imagine if they're not wanting to sit perfectly still and then be buckled in, trying to hold 3 pieces on this side, 2 on this side, and trying to clip them together. It's a nightmare.
But hey, on the topic of Halloween, the wagon, the wonderful wagon that we have, makes for great costume ideas.
That's true.
So we did Magic School Bus last year. Yep. And so our oldest was Miss Frizzle, and then our youngest was the lizard. And we made the wagon, the bus. And it's too bad we didn't do it this year, because this year she's obsessed with Magic School Bus.
Yeah,
Last year she didn't really.
Well, we didn't know if she would be, but
yeah. But it's fun because then you can use the wagon as part of your costumes and stuff and just incorporate it into everyday life. It's really easy to maneuver and you can bring it anywhere. The wagon is called the Wonderfold Wagon. And again, if you go to our YouTube, so just go to YouTube and search Autism Wish or Embracing Autism IRL. We have an interview on there by Adele Starin. And she's the one that talks about how to get this through your insurance. If your kid's autistic, they more than likely will qualify. But each insurance plan is different on what they will cover. So some insurance ones will cover it. Some will only cover a portion of it. Some will cover all of it. So it's very dependent on the insurance. And I know Medicaid will not cover it. So if you have Medicaid, I think she said that they don't generally.
And I was just saying, but it's also as far as like how the description is written for it, where it's written as what, a pediatric like
ambulatory device.
Right.
It's a pediatric wheelchair, basically.
Right. And they say, or she made, I mean, just one of the points that she made on the video was you don't want it to be flagged as like miscellaneous because they will automatically reject it. So, I mean, just definitely watch that video. I mean, I think it's,
yeah, it tells you exactly how to do it and what code your doctor should use.
Right. So, I mean, it's definitely holding your hand. I mean, she did a fantastic job on that. I mean, we learned a lot.
Yeah, but that wagon has helped Halloween for us because we can do trick-or-treating and stuff a lot easier with it.
Right. Because we've done it without, and I think we lasted what, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
I think it was about 5 to 10 minutes. 5 to 15 minutes?
It took longer to drive to like
the location
than we were actually there. So that was before the wagon. Now we're able to go to multiple trunk or treat events and whatever. And
it's been a lot easier.
And yeah, they want to sit in the wagon. I mean, they have a good time and makes our life a lot easier. So yeah.
They also have like these covers that stretch over it. And you can it has like a canopy, so you can cover it. And then if your kid needs like a sensory break or they're overwhelmed, they can kind of cocoon themselves and hide in there. And you can lower the canopy down so you can kind of box them in there as if it was kind of like a pack and play crib, but covered, which has worked really great when our kid is having like a meltdown or if she doesn't want anyone near her. It's kind of like giving them like their own little space or their like personal bubble out in the real world whenever you need it.
That's true.
And this question says, what about elopement from a car seat? My son is 4.5, 43 pounds, just outside his car seat. I'm too scared to switch to a booster because I still want the 5-point harness. There are prescription grade versions of basically they're car seats for older, bigger kiddos.
Well, some of them go up to like 80 pounds, I think.
Right? Yeah. Our kid she's 4.5, right?
She's 4.5. Yeah.
She's 4.5 and she's in a car seat that goes up to 80 pounds. So we're using that. She doesn't try to unclip herself, but if your child does unclip himself and he still fits in the car seat, there are special buckles that you can get. Yeah, there's like special covers that you can get. Amazon probably has them. Some DMEs have them. And you can put it over the clip so that they don't have access to it and can't unstrap themselves. If it's a matter of he's too big and he's just not fitting in it anymore, then you can also get these like prescription grade, kind of like car seats to hook your child into a car. And these are also through like DMEs or medical providers. It would be considered like a medical device. So it would be something that you'd have to get through the doctor as well. You'd have to get a prescription for it, find a DME that provides it, and then get it through them the same way you would the wagon, essentially. A thing to note, though, call your insurance, again, to see what your coverage is and see if they have limitations, because some places, what they'll do is like they'll limit you to how many of these types of devices you can have per a certain period of time. So if you got one and then you wanted to get something else, you'd have to wait like 5 years or something like that. So make sure to talk to your insurance and see what they cover and what those limitations are, because everyone's different.
Or I guess change jobs and get another insurance.
Yeah, I guess you could do that, but that's the hard way of doing it.
I suppose. Got to beat the system, right? Think outside the box.
Yeah. So those are some of the things that we have tried. Also, I wanted to give you guys a heads up. We do not have this live stream time boxed because we usually end it when we're done painting our pumpkins.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess the more we talk, the longer it'll go. So, yeah,
Sorry,
just
I mean,
in
we
case
could
you're
speed
looking
it
for
up.
a time of when this will end, there's no end time until we're done with our pumpkins. So don't feel like you have to stay here the whole time. But if you do, we love it. I don't know how my cat's going. What do you think?
Oh, you're basically done.
Are you kidding me? It looks like...
Look at mine. It's been an hour.
Yours looks like a mini Batman, doesn't he?
I guess.
Yeah, like watching over the city. You should put like little buildings down here. Turn it into a Batman. What are you doing?
An owl.
Oh, it's an owl. It's an owl.
Fine,
I thought it
it
was
could be
a
a
bat.
bat. I don't care.
I mean,
I'm waiting for it to dry.
I feel like it could go either bat or owl. You'll see.
Oh.
Doesn't it look like a little cape?
Yeah.
Sorry. Our pumpkins are not turning out how we thought they would.
No.
They never do.
Just waiting for paint to dry.
Yeah. That's literally the excuse they say for like the most boring thing to do is like watch paint dry.
Right.
So yeah, that's pretty much for Halloween what we have planned and what we've done. The other thing is like candy. We are learning that our kids react to candy differently. Like the oldest one, pretty mellow kid. It's not really a big deal. And she's honestly not too into candy because she's really limited in her food still. And honestly, her food limitations are so strict that she doesn't even dabble with candy really.
That's true.
Which I find interesting.
She's kind of like me, I guess, with like, I like candy fine, but I'm like not crazy about it. Like I like salty like snacks more so.
Yeah. But it's interesting that like a child, like a preschooler, wouldn't be all about sugar and candy, but she's not.
Yes, that's true.
And I think it's because she's very picky on trying new textures and flavors.
And we've witnessed our youngest eating Smarties off concrete.
Oh my gosh.
Floor like a cat. Where she'll like crouch over and then just like lean over and like lick it into her mouth.
Okay, so our youngest, ever since she was little, she's always had like, is it Pika or Pika? I always say it wrong. It's Pika, right? I think it's Pika. I always say it wrong. But Pika is kind of like when you want to eat inedible things. It's very common in autism. Our oldest definitely struggled with that growing up as well.
She's done well. I think she's pretty much grown out of it.
But she kind of outgrew it. But our youngest, it's like she's 3.5.
Yep.
She's still putting everything in her mouth. She almost choked on a rock one time in the car seat on the drive home. That was terrifying. We didn't even know she had the rocks. She had picked up.
Her sister had them. I think her sister picked them up. I think so. Because she wanted to bring them home. And then
somehow it got
I think she must have handed them to her or something. We just hear her choking. We're like, what are you choking
on? We're driving in the car and we just hear our child choking, which is like the most terrifying thing a parent could ever hear, especially in a car where you can't see what's happening. So we just pulled over in the middle of the road. We pulled off on the side in the middle of nowhere. And I go and rush to the back seat and I start patting her, getting out of the car seat. And she spits up a bunch of rocks that she had put in her mouth and started choking on. So like with her, it's been a scary road because she always puts, even to this day, she's still picking up really small, random, inedible things and putting them in her mouth. So that's not fun.
So, I mean, needless to say, when we saw her licking up a Smartie that was on the ground, at least we're happy that it was a Smartie.
That's true.
So, but we figured it also built her immune system.
She does like eat things off the floor. I mean, we don't let her, but every so often she'll spill things and she'll eat them off the floor. It's kind of funny because she likes to pretend she's like, what, a cat? Is it? She likes to pretend she's a cat because she's obsessed with cats, which is why my pumpkin is a cat. And she will like eat things straight off the floor, like with her mouth directly.
Yeah. She's really good at method acting.
She just stays in character all the time.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's like off of like concrete or highways or like really gross stuff that you don't want your child eating off of. So that's been a struggle too. I feel like it's really hard to teach them the dangers of that.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's been an adventure. Let's see. We have Shelly here says, I have a safety first car seat and it goes from birth to 100 pounds and we love and bought it at Sam's Club. Nice. That looks like a good idea. So Allie, maybe look into that. Any clues on how to night potty a 3-year-old? He does a very good job during the day, but not nighttime. Yeah. One of the things that we did, and it still works. Our kid, we had a really hard time potty training our 3. Well, she was 3 then.
Right.
Like it took us like a year and a half, and then we figured it out and got it done in 2 weeks. But the overnight thing, what we did as a little life hack
Kind
is
of cheated a little bit.
it's not really cheating. It works. We got a little one of those like miniature potties,
Like the plastic portable ones, like
yeah,
when you're first teaching them to potty train.
that looks like a real potty. And we basically just keep it in her room. Because she's still at this age, she's like 4.5, and at this age, she still hasn't figured out. Like we can't trust them to leaving the bathroom door open and going in.
We're too terrified of that because as far
they
as
get
like,
in the water, they start, they spill water, they could easily choke, drown, whatever, because they just turn everything on. So what we've done is we've locked the bathroom so they can't go in there at night, but we put like a little potty in their room, and they are using that. They used to dump it, but we worked with them to not do that. So now they don't dump it. And then we put like one of those like medical pads around it in case there's any spills so that it doesn't get on your carpet or on your floor. And that's honestly worked pretty well so far.
So yeah, generally though, if they need to use a potty in the night, they'll use it and then go back to bed. So our youngest will still wake up and then she'll we have monitors. So she'll call to us and say that she has to go potty. So we'll like go in there, make sure that she is okay, and then we'll dump it. But our oldest, she kind of knows the routine. So if she has to use the potty, she'll go in the middle of the night and then go back to sleep.
Yeah. So, but at least that way it's like not disruptive. And then in the morning you can just empty it out, at least until they're old enough that you can have that like sense, security with them. Our kids are not there yet. They're not old enough to really figure out the bathroom safely unattended. They still are kind of in a hazard age. So that's what we do right now.
Yeah.
Let's see. It says my son is awful about sticking everything in his mouth. But he hasn't been diagnosed with pica. Usually they don't diagnose with pica. I don't know that it's actually a diagnosis so much as it is a symptom.
I thought there's a high correlation
there, but yes, but it's highly correlated with autism.
So I mean, ours hasn't been diagnosed with that either. We just
know because I know what it is.
Yeah. But at the same time, I mean, unless there's a specific reason why you need a diagnosis of pica, we don't really need the diagnosis. We just, observation. We're like, okay, she observes the same components that she would have if she did have pica. But as far as like a medical diagnosis, we don't really need that to kind of go about our daily life.
Yeah. And for help with that is really mostly through the occupational therapist, because we have noticed for our kid, it's different for every kid, but for our kid, it's been primarily a sensory seeking thing. So it's not usually because they're hungry. It's usually because they want some sort of sensory input in their mouth. Like our oldest kid used to put gravel in her mouth. And so what we did is you replace the textures that they're seeking with something that's edible but safer. So I replaced gravel with crushed ice. And then what you do is you give that to them whenever that opportunity would arise. So our driveway was gravel. So every time we knew we were going to go to the car, I'd get her a cup of crushed ice to walk out to the car with. And since she already had it available to her, she could just eat that and she was no longer distracted by the gravel. So it's kind of doing a little bit of that detective work and see how you can incorporate those exchanges.
Yeah, we haven't really seen too much of that with our oldest anymore.
Yeah.
Youngest is still
scaring us a bit, but she's a little bit harder because she's a little pistol. She runs off so quickly. She's hard to keep track of. She's very hyper. We're pretty sure she'll probably have ADHD when she's old enough for the diagnosis.
That's true.
Let's see. He wants to use a portable potty. I have one. He wants the real potty, but he fights it during the night. Does he fight the portable potty at night or the real potty at night? But a good middle ground would be like the portable potty that looks like the real potty, which is the one that we have. It looks like a real potty and just miniature. He says he throws himself on the floor in a full meltdown when he doesn't get his way. He headbangs the floor also and slaps himself in his head. That sounds like it could either be sensory or transition. From your description, it sounds like it's probably more of a transition thing than a sensory thing. But usually I would try to see Is it because he's not getting his way? Is there something specifically about that potty that he likes? Is it the color? Is it the way it feels? Is there like a certain smell in the bathroom that he likes, or a texture he likes to touch? Usually there's a reason why he's attracted to that one. So if you can do some observation and see what might be that reason, you can try to incorporate a substitution.
Yeah,
that usually helps.
Because our youngest, she definitely prefers the actual like regular one to her portable one. But we think that is because she likes to feel like independent and like a grown up.
Yeah.
Like she'll steal like our like McDonald's drinks, and she'll like
anything we're drinking, basically.
Pretty much. But she'll basically tell us like her justification for why she wants it is because she's a grown up. So she'll tell us that she's a grown up and she needs a drink. So
I mean, not in those words, but
well, yeah.
Because she doesn't talk eloquently. But...
No. She'll run around, I'm a grown up. And then her reaching for our drink. And so that's another story. But I mean, she definitely would want to sit on like the regular toilet versus like the portable one. But just try to enforce like during the night that's primarily the one that she'll use. So
yeah. And sometimes calling it two different things, like a nighttime potty versus a daytime potty, helps. Another thing you could use is a visual aid. The visual aid or visual schedule you can use to like prepare your kid before bedtime. So you could create one with just like clip art, or you can probably find one on Google Images, and basically have like a schedule set up for them that says, what the expectations are. So before bedtime, this is like what you're going to do. You're going to go use the bathroom here, this or that. Once you're in bed, you're going to go to sleep. If you need to go bathroom, whatever it is you want them to do, if you want them to call for you, if you want them to use a small potty, whatever it is you want to do, kind of lay it out in that visual aid or visual schedule, and then read it to them every night before bedtime to kind of get them on that routine until they get used to it. So having that kind of anticipation where you're walking them through it so that they know what to expect kind of helps lay that groundwork too. I think that's worked really well for our kids.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, let's see. That is what I have, a white regular portable potty, but he doesn't like it. But he will use the big potty during the day, but not during the night. I'd probably just investigate to see what you think the reason might be. Like, is he scared? Is it possible that at night it looks scary to him, or he needs another person with him, or what it may be? Maybe having a nightlight near it. Like, it's hard to say without knowing what the reason is. And I know you probably don't know what the reason is. So usually what I would do is probably just quietly observe a couple of days and see if you can find a pattern. Just watch every day as you're bringing him to bed. Watch what's happening before he gets upset or refuses, whatever it may be, and see if there's something in common every day. It could be something simple like texture, or it could be that he's not wearing the pajamas he wants or something like that. But you don't really know unless you observe for a period of time. Says if he has a nightlight on, he wants to go to bed, he will play. So he doesn't have a nightlight, it sounds like, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Our kids usually prefer the nightlight, and if they play, honestly, we let them play. They just know that the rule is kind of like when you're in your bed, it's quiet time. So like you can play, but you have to play quietly, at least until they fall asleep.
And it's the same thing for like a nap. So, I mean, we basically just call it like quiet time. So, I mean, and most of the time our oldest, she'll probably play for half of it and then she might sleep for like the second half. But usually we kind of give, her the option. It's basically quiet time where she can play with some toys that she has in her room, but otherwise she can sleep. But basically it's kind of her time essentially. It seems to work pretty well. And it's kind of the same thing in the morning, because I know sometimes she wakes up early and she has like her little doodle pad, so she can either like draw or like
do what you got to do.
Right. And then like we have like a set time that we get her in the morning. So
yeah. So I think this is as good as my pumpkin's gonna get, because I am not great at this.
Yours looks better than mine.
Do you think you're done with yours?
Probably. I'm just adding more paint because I don't know what else to do. All
right. I think we could probably just
turn it.
Reveal our pumpkin. I like how yours is evil. It's got like evil eyes.
It's Halloween.
All right. We're gonna reveal our pumpkins. You might have to carry mine. These things are massive. I'm telling you, they're so huge.
Just spin it, right?
You can't see it unless you lift it. See, it's not.
Oh.
Okay, so the first one. Oh,
you want to go that way?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, let's see. So here's the reveal of my cat pumpkin. Yeah, turn it this way. There we go. It doesn't have legs because I figured I can't do legs.
There we go.
And hopefully my kid likes it because I think it's pretty bad. Okay, now let's see your pumpkin.
Oh.
All right. This is like, what is this? It's actually pretty amazing, I think. It's got like red eyes. What is it?
It's like,
what's it
supposed to be an owl, so I have a, oh, you can't tell.
Whoa, did you make it green?
No,
it's yellow. His moon is yellow. Moon. For some reason, the camera's not picking up the moon. It's making it like reflective or something.
Well, anyway, I have a moon that's supposed to be yellow that you can't see, apparently. So.
Oh, they like the cat.
Oh. And then I have like a little demon. Where is he?
Where is
There is he.
That? Okay, that was supposed to be an owl. And then it turned into like a bat, and now I feel like it's like a horror movie
or something.
I don't know what it is.
She said cute.
She said owl sitting in a tree. Cute. There you go. Oh, they think it's cute. There you go, little owl. You don't have, those red eyes. I thought for sure it would look evil, but it could be cute. It could be a cute.
But that is hilarious that the moon turned out to be.
For some reason the moon is like weirdly showing weird on the camera.
Like a green screen or something.
But it's not green. It's not a green moon. We don't have green screen. I don't know why it's happening. So yeah, that was our pumpkin painting. And wait a minute, they have to vote. Hold up. That's right. We do the voting.
Well,
okay, y'all.
See them.
Vote. Which one's your favorite? No bias whatsoever. We've got cat, and then these are massive. These are so big. Don't make us hold it much longer.
The cool moon.
And then we've got the owl with a cool moon that was totally intentional. Okay, vote in the comments. Which one's your favorite? We'll let our kids know because this one's going to represent the older kid and this one's going to represent the younger kid. Okay. Okay, so Shelly says cat. Allie says owl/bat. Bat owl. We can call it bat owl. Cool. It's a tie then, unless we get any other votes.
Gosh.
I guess it'll be a tie.
That's okay.
That's probably a good, was it sold by random black hole? So I think the owl's winning then. Okay, so then we can tell our kids this one potentially won.
They're gonna hate mine because they don't know what it is.
No, they
it's like owls. A stick with.
Just tell them it's like a superhero owl.
There we go.
They might buy that, right?
Owl. That's right.
Y'all have to help us sell this to our kids.
There we go.
What do we tell our kids to make them excited about this owl that did not end up looking like an owl?
And he's happy. I can put a happy face.
I think it looks better without a face.
Probably true.
It's nice. Oh, thank you. Cat is very, very cute.
I agree. And it's like you had the inspiration the whole time.
I know. There's like, where is it? Right there. My cat. Okay, so we will be wrapping up because it's an hour and a half. That's probably one of our longest live streams we've done. So if there's any other last minute questions, feel free to enter them in the chat. We'll give a couple minutes for them to trickle in. Any Christmas wish questions or any questions in general, go ahead and put those in, and then we will be wrapping up for the night. When it comes to these live streams, we generally do one at the end of every season of a podcast. So our next one will probably be, I'm guessing, late November or December. Probably I think December. Is when our podcast ends for the season.
Might almost call it every quarter.
Something like, yeah, it's like every quarter-ish. Okay, so we have one question. It says, do you have any information on how you know if your kids have autism? So I'm not sure. Do you mean like how to get a diagnosis, like evaluation, or do you mean generally speaking, like red flags for autism? You can't really know if your child actually is autistic without going through that diagnostic process. If you think or suspect your child might be autistic, you typically have to get them evaluated through a developmental pediatrician or developmental psychiatrist, an MD basically. And if they're a little bit older, you can also do like a neuropsychologist, but it has to be somebody who's qualified in autism. A developmental pediatrician is usually the best bet. Couple things with that is heads up, the wait lists are really long. Average is like 1 to 2 years for the bigger facilities. The thing that we found out through one of the interviews we did with a doctor is if you go to those smaller facilities, the lesser known ones, so you avoid the big medical clinics and go to a smaller facility, those usually have a much shorter wait list. I mean, anywhere between just a couple months to a couple weeks.
So we actually did one of the IRLs. I can't recall her name. The author for Brody's Line, right?
Yes.
Did an IRL where she was basically saying that she is able to diagnose children, and she said basically like her wait list is no more than like a couple of weeks. And I mean, we got on a short list and we still had to wait, I think, like 6 months for ours because we went through a larger institution. But I would definitely look for smaller. And she, I think, mentioned that if you contact ABA or
like a facility,
right, they could potentially put you in
it.
touch with someone.
Yeah.
So I would definitely look at a smaller clinic versus like some of these larger ones like Children's National or something like that.
Now, if you're looking for information on like red flags, like how do you know if your kid has signs for autism? We actually have a podcast episode. So if you're not familiar, we have the Embracing Autism podcast. It's available anywhere you stream podcasts, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And in season 1, I believe it's episode 103. So it might be about the second or third episode of that podcast. We have a whole podcast episode dedicated to autism red flags. So some of those things are like avoiding eye contact, not hitting certain milestones, developmental milestones, like walking, talking, fine motor skills, gross motor skills, all of those things.
And one we actually didn't talk about because we didn't learn about it until we had the developmental pediatrician on. If your child is using you as a tool rather than like getting the object for themselves or trying to like, if they kind of are maneuvering you as like they would like a tool, that was another red flag that we recently found out about. Yeah.
And then Shelly says, with some of his behaviors I told you about, what is your opinion? I think this was the potty. Was this the potty one? Maybe. I'll have to scroll up and see which ones. Let me take a look real quick. Oh yeah. So sleeping in the room, in his own bed, the potty training one. Okay. Yeah. So, he was delayed. So honestly, it could be autism. It could not be autism. We're not medical professionals, so we can't like diagnose, but I would say that there are potential red flags for autism from what you've described. The problem is that those red flags can overlap with other developmental disabilities as well. So there's no way to know for sure if it's autism or not unless you get a diagnosis or an evaluation, because there's other things that are similar. So there's like oppositional defiant disorder, and there's like ADHD, and there's like a bunch of other things that are in that family that have similar symptoms. So your best bet would be to get him evaluated. But I would definitely say that there looks like potential for at least autism red flags. One of the things you could do is go to your pediatrician and see if they have an M-Chat. The M-Chat is kind of like a screener that they do for autism. And it takes like 5 seconds. It's just like a little form, and they check for red flags to see if your kid might qualify to get evaluated. So that's something you could just call your pediatrician.
And she's saying there's no headbanging or meltdown, screaming, or putting anything in his mouth. Okay.
Yeah. So I would just say definitely get it checked out just in case. And even if it's not autism, it could be something else that you still want to pay attention to.
Yeah, I would pull up and look at the different red flags. I mean, we've mentioned a few that we've just witnessed with our girls. I mean, there's probably countless sites. I'm sure probably like the CDC or some other clinics will list kind of the red flags as well. I would just kind of go through the checklist and see if you're observing him just in his everyday life during play, anything, if you're noticing any of these red flags, then it might be something to look into. The only ones we're mentioning are like ones we've actually witnessed with like both of our girls and that we've actually worked with. I think of the Child Find.
Yeah.
The ones that we found with them. As well as our different therapists. So, I mean, those are just the ones that we're highlighting. So, I mean, obviously,
your child is still at the age too where they should qualify for the local public school system special education services as well. So you could bring it up to them. They have a program that by law they need to basically help with special needs kids who fall under the age of 5. So like an IFSB plan. So you could look into your local public school system special education department if you feel like your doctor's not doing it. Otherwise, you can also try a different doctor, or you can buy, depending on your insurance. If your insurance requires a referral, then I would say find another doctor because you'll need the referral. But if your insurance does not require a referral, you can go directly to a physical therapist, a speech therapist, an occupational therapist, and ask them to do an evaluation on your child. They cannot diagnose autism, but they can diagnose delays in those areas which are associated with autism. So if you're able to get that paperwork, then you could bring that back to your pediatrician and say, they have all these other symptoms, so I suspect autism, and it might win them over to put in a referral.
Okay.
And even if he's homeschooled, you're still eligible to get those resources. In most states, every state is different, so you have to check your specific state rules. But you're still, eligible to get the information that you need from the special needs
department. But it might
department.
not be a bad idea to look into a new doctor, because I know for our doctor before we relocated, he was really reluctant to kind of
do anything.
Right. And it was kind of like, we got pushback as well, kind of like, oh, no, that's not anything to worry about. Like, and I mean, if we had listened, I mean, we wouldn't have gotten where we are now, because I mean, we'd be like, oh, okay, like we'll push it back then. So, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily accept that answer from the doctor if you think something is still there and you are pulling up a number of red flags. I think it would be something to look into. And
trust your instincts as a parent. Your instincts as a parent are often on the right track. So it says she's got those papers and the doctor won't, and the school won't until next year. I would, in that situation, look for a different doctor if possible. Or again, go the therapist route or find a second opinion. Because if that doctor is not looking into it, they might, like, if your child ends up having a diagnosis, they might not be super helpful. Like if you need these prescriptions for like a wagon, or you need a prescription for a special chair, or whatever it may be, that doctor will probably resist every time.
It might be a fight for everything.
Yeah. So honestly, I would say probably look for a different doctor at that point.
And honestly, what we kind of did was, I mean, we actually did research on you did research on Facebook as soon as we moved here.
Go to a local Facebook page.
Right. And then type in I mean, you can even say, I think like my child might be autistic. Are there any like doctors that are like friendly for like autism? I mean, that's how we found like the kid's dentist doctor. I mean, some of these things, because there's other people in the community who might have a similar or the same struggle, and they can recommend, oh, this person, we've had good experience with him. And
go to search Facebook for a local autism parent group, even if it's just at a state level. But you could start from there and ask somebody like, hey, I live in this area of the state. Does anybody know any good doctors for autism here, or doctors who take autism seriously? And then you can basically get a bunch of recommendations. That's what we did. And that's how we found a great doctor for our kid, because a bunch of other parents that lived here recommended him and said, oh, this guy's great with autistic kids. So that would be a next thing you could do too. All right. It looks like that's all the questions we have. Thanks so much for joining and sticking around for an hour and almost 40 minutes.
Yep.
The Halloween one is the longest. We never go this far, but Halloween is the longest. And so I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen and for voting on our pumpkins. Again,
they're always terrible.
A reminder, Christmas Wish applications end on November 1st. If you are not yet a listener of the Embracing Autism podcast, please check it out. Follow us on Autism Wish on Instagram and Facebook. We also have our YouTube channel. Just search the phrase Embracing Autism IRL, and please follow us and subscribe there. We are trying to get up to 100 for right now, so we could change the name.
So if you think we're doing a good job, subscribe. If you think we're not doing a good job,
subscribe anyway,
and leave a comment saying thank you.
All right. Shelly, feel free to send us an email, info@autismwish.org, if you need help with this topic. You just submit the question there, and we'll get back to you. All right, everyone, thank you so much, and I hope you all enjoyed this. Have a great Halloween, and stick around. We'll have more events coming up soon.
All right, have a good one.
Bye.